Now, I've received a very, very interesting proposal from an avid follower of this channel. Yeah, this guy is also a Club 1999 member. I would really classify him as a Kumekucha Damu. His proposal is, why don't I do a video on what would Moi have done? In the current impasse and crisis that Kenya is facing, what would Moi have done? Now, to younger Kenyans, Moi was a dictator, period. They don't want to know anything more. They don't want to discuss anything more. Yeah. However, there's something else that has come up in recent times, yeah, that would make this proposal about discussing what Moi would have done in this political crisis even more important, even more interesting and revealing. Yesterday, Chief Justice David Maraga said, one of the biggest problems facing Kenya today is lack of leadership. Okay? And indeed, he's not the first person to say this. It has been said over and over again. Our problem in Kenya is that we lack leadership. I mean, very many people have said that. Indeed, even Jubilee people have said the same thing. Yeah? But not many people have interrogated exactly what is meant when people say in Kenya we don't have leadership. Let me be blunt and brief. What they're actually saying is that the highest authority in the land, yeah, has failed to provide leadership, has failed to provide direction. Many people aspire to be President of the Republic of Kenya, yeah, do not spare a lot of thought as to the responsibilities that come with the job, yeah. To them, being President of Kenya is just motorcades and smart salutes and respect and being called mtukufu, yeah. But actually, being President of any country, number one, you must provide leadership. Now, Moi was a dictator, yes, but nobody, in all the years that Moi ruled, I never heard anybody say that we lack leadership in Kenya. Yeah, we had leadership, a dictatorial one, yes, but we did not lack leadership. I put it to you that leadership, yeah, is better. Any leadership is better than no leadership at all, even if that leadership is dictatorial. I believe that I'll be able to demonstrate very clearly in this series, okay? And it should be a very, very interesting series, yeah? And we'll get started immediately after the upcoming short commercial break. Don't go away. Welcome back. Now, I've spoken to quite a number of people who are alive and who were grown-ups during the long tenure of former President Arap Moi, yeah, because I didn't want to be biased in this particular topic. And obviously, when you talk to other people, they see things that you yourself may not have seen. Yeah, that's why discussions are good. Now, the really fascinating thing about this discussion is that there was one thing we all agreed on unanimously. Without any dissenting view, everybody agreed. And it is this, that if Moi were president in 2017, leading up to the rigging of the elections and into the year 2018 where we are now, yeah, Kenya would not be in the crisis it is in today. That we agreed on. And the main reason is that Moi provided leadership. Moi was a leader. Okay? Now what we have in Kenya today, is a situation where we lack leadership. And this is driving the country to the edge. This is driving the country to disaster. Whatever the other issues are, it really doesn't matter. It all starts and ends with the leadership. Now I can hear Jubilee supporters saying, no, Chris, you're wrong. Moi ruled under a regime, under a constitution that gave him all the sweeping powers, and it is not fair to compare him to the current situation whereby there's a new constitution. Okay, let me handle that complaint. Although that is true, it's a fact, okay? However, there's something which happened in 1992, okay? The country went back into multi-party politics. And when the country went back into multi-party politics, it is also a fact, and it is true to say, that Moi ruled with limited powers, with his powers dramatically reduced, between 1992 and 2002, when he left office. Not only that, there are other disadvantages Moi had that the current regime does not have. For instance, he did not have an absolute majority in parliament. Yes, he had a very slight majority. And it was dangerously close, so much so that the opposition could easily do things in parliament, and indeed they did. Something else very significant is that Moi had lost the support of most Western powers, most notably the powerful Americans. So Moi had a lot of things working for him. The current Jubilee government has support of the entire Western world. Very firm, solid support. And they have a very vast majority in parliament. Indeed, the majority in parliament is something Moi would have craved for. And indeed, at that time, if he had it, would have been able to do a lot of very interesting things. So the comparison is fair, in my view, very fair. Now, let's start with election rigging. Moi used to rig elections, okay? And currently, our current crisis was triggered by electoral theft, massive electoral theft. And so Moi is president 2017, and as usually rigs the election, he rigs himself back into office, and the Supreme Court nullifies his election. Now, number one, the first thing to note here, Moi's rigging of his elections were very, very carefully done. They were never obvious. They were never easy to call out and say, I definitely rigged. People knew Moi rigged. They suspected. But pinning him down, that was another matter. Something else very important, when Moi rigged, he rigged only for himself. Okay? He did not touch the popular vote of the people for the other candidates. So what happened at the end of the day when you looked at the results? You saw Member of Parliament, that's fine. Councillor, that's fine. And so after a rigged Moi presidency, or rather a rigged election where Moi had won, you'd hear people say, okay, fine, Moi has rigged, but it's okay, we'll sort him out in Parliament. Indeed, I remember very distinctly, hearing people say, in one of those elections where Moi had rigged himself back in, they said the following: we have Professor Nyang' Nyong'o in Parliament, we have Kenneth Matiba in Parliament, we have Raila Odinga, we have James Orengo. Gosh, things are going to be fine. Let's see what happens in Parliament. Indeed, that was my political lecturer talking. Let me just confess. And so the result was that tensions never went overboard. Contrast that to the 2017 August 8th elections. There are way too many losers who are in both houses. And why are they in both houses? They're courtesy of top-tap votes, top-tap presidential votes. Let me explain. When you top up presidential votes, you have to top up all the other seats. Otherwise, what will happen is that after the elections, people will ask questions. they'll say, why is it that 1 million people walked into polling stations? They didn't vote for governor. They didn't vote for women's rep. They didn't vote for MCA. You know, people are close to them. I mean, those are the first people you vote for. Yeah. But instead, all of them just voted for the president and walked out. Now, there's something very interesting that also happened in 2017. Yeah. Despite the topping up of votes, yeah, it is clear that something went wrong. The figures still were not satisfactory to those who were topping them up. And they decided to top up further figures. And so what happened is that we had a situation whereby the president received votes in many places where the voters allegedly did not vote for anybody else. And indeed, this was one of the highlights of the Supreme Court petition against the election of President Uhuru. Yeah? And the sharp legal minds of the Supreme Court brought out a very interesting point, yeah, which in my view worked a lot towards having the presidential election nullified. And if you remember, the issue was brought up by Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu. And if you'll allow me to remind you, it was over the seemingly harmless question about spoilt votes and what I'll just call blank votes. Yeah, the Deputy Chief Justice asked, what happens when somebody walks into a polling station, yeah, so that you end up with spoiled votes? To cut a long story short, it emerged very clearly that when somebody walks into a polling station, they're given all 6 ballot papers. And indeed, the way a polling station is set up, you know, the whole system, it's not possible to go into a polling station and fail to receive all 6 ballot papers. And so the question of somebody walking into a polling station and marking only the presidential ballot paper is actually an impossibility, virtually an impossibility. Bottom line, under Moi would never have ended up with tensions anywhere near where they are right now in Kenya. Now, in the next part of this enthralling and exciting series, we're going to look at what Moi would have done to an overturned election by the Supreme Court. Okay? Don't miss it. This is Kshs Kumekucha. See you there in a bit. Tawala Kenya, tawala. Tawala Kenya, tawala.